In my last video, I told you that people pleasing cost me. Today, I want to tell you where I first saw that, and it wasn't where I expected. I thought that leaving my previous marriage would change everything. But here's what nobody tells you, that the patterns you've built, they don't stay behind when you leave. They move with you right into the next chapter. A few years after the divorce, I found myself in a really good marriage with a man who was devoted to me, very communicative, and as he constantly reminds me, on my side. I found that I was still walking on eggshells, still afraid to make him mad, still shutting down, still not speaking my truth. And that's when I knew this wasn't a problem with him. This was about me. So you might remember that I mentioned in my last video about something an old friend said to me, said, "Where's the old Alicia?" Okay, so at that time, I didn't fully understand what they meant yet. Then, as the months went on, my husband said something to me that just stopped me too. We were having a conversation and my old patterns were surfacing. And he said, "Alicia, I am not your ex." He wasn't angry. He was just telling the truth. And at the time, I didn't hear it. He said it a few more times and it started to sink in. And I heard him. And the truth is, I would hold everything in, never say what I wanted, never speak about how I felt. And then something small would happen and I would just shut down for days, not speak, because I was so afraid of upsetting him, even though he had never given me a reason to be afraid. I started seeing the same old resentments building in this relationship that I'd had in my last one. And this man had done nothing to deserve this. And so that's when I started reading and listening to podcasts and working through different personal development programs and yada, 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 yada. And eventually I had to face the hardest truth of all. The problem with me was me. So let me tell you a story. Here's how sneaky people pleasing is. I never finished college. I started. I continued a little bit into my last relationship, but I stopped. And I told myself it was because the time and the money that were put towards it would be a hardship on my family. That my husband, my children mostly, needed me present. I framed it as a sacrifice. A noble choice, nonetheless. But was it really? I was making sure everyone else was comfortable at the cost of my dreams. Another true story. I got my yoga teaching certification. I got my yoga teacher certification in 2021. And I did nothing with it because I was afraid. And I had all of those ants running around in my head, those automatic negative thoughts. You're not good enough. Who wants to learn anything from you? And you don't even look like the yoga teacher. Who are you kidding? I sat on the idea of launching my YouTube channel for years, almost 4 years actually. I got my certification in October of 2021, and I launched my channel in September of 2025. It's a long time. I sat with those horrible thoughts in my head, even while I was trying to work on myself, telling you these patterns, they are ingrained in us. So I started working. What got me on to making the channel is I started working with a coach, and I forced myself to start it. Petrified, I published and started the channel, and then I couldn't back down because life is short. Forward momentum. I was done setting myself aside. You see how we justify things. We call it sacrifice, but it's people pleasing in a convincing costume. So anyway, so I started the channel and I kept uploading videos every week, but I still had those thoughts in my head, and I still thought, I would make my videos and I would be thinking, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. I should be doing something else, blah, 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 because this was something for me. And yet my people pleasing tendencies were somebody else needs you more. So that's around December is when I started hearing about, a word of the year. And then I heard about, the unbridled spirit. And I said, okay, as I said in the last video, I said, that's my word. And I didn't know how to approach getting there. So that's when I started the 12 intentions for the year. And my first intention was sovereign. And yes, the irony of my first intention being sovereign and the fact that my channel is called Sovereign Yoga School did not get by me. So sovereign means supreme power over oneself. And for a woman who spent decades handing that power to everyone around her, that word felt enormous. So I decided to start small. One practice, one commitment. My sovereign step would be speaking up, actually saying what I wanted, what I felt, what I needed, instead of just swallowing it down. So although I set that intention of the one small step as speaking up, it sounds easy, but for someone who spent years not speaking up for herself, it was huge. And I knew if I just let it sit there and say, okay, your intention is to feel sovereign, you're going to speak up. Let's be honest, I probably wouldn't have done it. So I knew I needed something as a guide to help me work this, because it was something I was going to have to work up to, not something that was just going to happen overnight. So I set up 4 steps. And then at the beginning of the month, the first step was to notice. Just notice the moment, that moment when somebody asks you, maybe they say you want to go to such and such restaurant. Your brain is saying, no, I hate that place. But your mouth is making a smile and going, sure, that'd be great. And then you end up at that restaurant that you really don't like. And that builds inside you. And then the cycle just rinses and repeats. So the first couple of days, don't take too many, just take a couple, because we're trying to change something. We're not trying to reinforce it, this pattern. Just notice that moment. And as you notice these moments, you'll catch yourself and you'll pause and you'll hesitate before you answer. And then I want you to speak up. That is your second step. Speak up and don't take it back. Don't soften it. Don't backtrack. Don't qualify it. Just say what you want to say. No. Let's go here. I don't know, something, whatever you want to say. And don't soften it. Don't say, oh, let's go here if that's okay. No, you just say, let's go here. Period. End of sentence. And then once you do that, walk away and celebrate because you did it. Give yourself a pat on the back, give yourself a high five in the bathroom mirror, do a little happy dance. I don't know what you're going to do, but celebrate that moment because you did it. The first time will be hard. Trust me, I know. But the more you do it, the easier it gets. And just keep celebrating yourself every time you do it. And then write it down. Write down in a journal, whatever. I don't care where you write it down. Just keep track of it because then you have evidence that you can rewire yourself. You can change patterns. You need to see that you're actually doing it. Was I 100% successful? No. Was I 50% successful? Maybe. I mean, it's a hard road. We're rewiring our brain. We're changing old patterns. But that's okay. There were moments that I still diverted back to the people pleasing. But it's okay because I still called the months successful because I started. Everyone has to start somewhere. Remember, I said my PhD is in people pleasing. I am an expert, so I have a lot to relearn. And it's baby steps, always baby steps. So if you have a version of this story, a dream you set aside, a truth you swallowed, a pattern you brought into from one chapter into the next, I want you to know that it doesn't have to stay that way. You are allowed to choose yourself, even now, even after all this time. Next, I'm going to share my second intention, which is unapologetic. And if sovereign was about finding my voice, unapologetic was about what happened when I actually used it. Leave me a comment below. What's one thing you've set aside for everyone else that you want back? I read every single one. And until our paths cross again, off the mat, let your heart lead the way.